Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Toffee Blues YouTube channel, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to the extra time for Bournemouth 4, Everton 1 at Dean Court last night. And what was a really, really bad day at the office for Everton. Another one, a few of these seem to be creeping up now, unfortunately. And it was the annual early exit from the League Cup, as things go, I suppose. But there's a way and means of doing that, as ever. I'm joined by Owen and Paul to dissect last night's abysmal performance in a game which saw 11 changes for the Blues. A bit excessive, you could say, but I think a lot of those players reminded us why they don't get much game time anyway. So, yeah, we'll start with you, Paul. Needless to say, a really disappointing evening, wasn't
it? I didn't expect to go through. It's just part of the course. Whenever Everton get a tough game in the League Cup, and I know there's ours are draws to get then, a team that's down the bottom like Bournemouth are, and like we are, but just whenever we go away in the League Cup, we don't to a Premier League team. I can never ever remember us winning. We even lose a lot of time when we get Premier League teams at Goodison. So I wasn't surprised. I'm not that disappointed because I don't think that winning this competition was on the cards with the state of the squad the way it is. But as you said, there's a way and means to lose, and I just thought absolutely nobody came out with any credit, not the players, not the manager. We'll have to take that back. The only people who did come out with any credit was the supporters, the thousands of them who trekked down there on a school night to the other end of the country in not very nice weather and getting served up that. It was just pitiful, and I think I'm being generous even using that word.
Yeah, absolutely. Owen, we mentioned there 11 changes to the side. I touched on that perhaps that was a bit excessive, but it served as a kindly reminder that there is some really poor players in this team, isn't there?
I think you're being kind of excessive. It was just completely ridiculous, to be honest. I mean, if it was 11 changes and it was the same formation, then I'd go, well, at least you can, if he's trying to maybe see if one of these players can maybe do one of the roles of the team from the players who have been playing the Premier League games. But to go to Bournemouth in the League Cup, which you don't really need to go into too much caution because we don't go through anyway, and you can pretty much sort of have a go at it because we've got nothing to lose. And to go 5-3-2, 11 changes, it was just. I just thought from the manager it was a big two fingers to the supporters who went down there. And I know this competition isn't a competition we're likely to win, and I echo everything that Paul just said. But I think there's a courtesy and there's a way of battling. And I think if the fans had seen a couple of maybe the younger lads play, mixed with a Decore and then maybe a couple of first teamers, and we went out to go, look, it's just too many games. We're not quite good enough. But to get beat 4-1 to a really poor team who made about, I think, 9 changes. So it's not like we got beat 4-1 to their first team.
Yeah,
we got beat 4-1 to their resis, or half of them weren't even playing in the Championship last season. Was really poor. There was a lack of effort, lack of motivation, zero tactical idea of how we were going to win that game. And like I just said, I think Paul summed up perfectly. Just an appalling night from everyone involved.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. Just coming back to you, mate. We saw players who haven't really featured this season at all, and we know that you could argue that maybe our strongest 11, if you like, with the likes of Onana, Gana Gay, Calvert-Lewin, players like that who they weren't featuring, but that team was really finding it difficult to get amongst the goals themselves. And, there wasn't much an improvement last night. Players like Neil Maupay, really poor, I thought. Anthony Gordon not really having much of an impact on the game. It's a real concern, isn't it? This complete inability to create anything or score any goals. There were portions of the game last night, particularly in the first half, when, Everton did have a lot of possession and Everton did keep the ball, but we did absolutely nothing with it, nothing at all. So what is the problem, Paul? How is this team so incapable of just creating anything at all up the final third? It's going to come back to bite us, mate, isn't it?
Why are they so incapable? Because they're just bad footballers.
Yeah.
You don't need to overanalyze it. Touching back on what Owen brought up, I kind of understood why the manager changed formation, because we have got a couple of niggles, haven't we? I mean, Onana and Garner Gay apparently haven't trained since the weekend. Apparently, they might be training today, I think Frank said, when he did his pre-match press conference. He said they likely weren't going to feature, and they might feature at the weekend. We don't know. So I get why he felt the need to maybe come away from the 4-3-3 and play the five at the back. I was going to say the three at the back, but it's a five at the back, really. But I just thought the amount of players who he handed minutes to, and it made no sense. You either want to win this game or you don't want to win this game, or you don't, or rather you care about this game or you don't care about this game. Now, I'm sorry, but the argument of certain players need a rest, it does not wash. I know Frank came out with that after the match, and he might very well believe it in his mind, but if he does believe it, then that shows how much he's got to learn about management, because the players are all going off in a month, in a 2 week. What is this game on weekend? Our last game.
Yeah,
it's closer than I thought it was. Yeah, this trip back down to Bournemouth at the weekend in the league is the last game before the players all go off for a break while the World Cup's on. And how many players have we got going the World Cup? 3.
If that,
nailed on. Yeah, 3. If that, sure. Pickford, Cody, most likely. Tarkowski probably should be going, but likely won't.
Onana probably.
Garner Gay and maybe Onana. Yeah, 3 or 4, give or take. There's another 8 or 9 who
I think Michael Keane will be going.
might be for Ireland if they were in it, but the players are going to be not going to be having a busy schedule for the next couple of weeks anyway. There was no need to rest them, and if you weren't really taking the game seriously and it wasn't a big deal if we went out of it, then you should have used it to give youngsters who haven't had any opportunities a chance to show what they can do. Because I just don't understand why he gave minutes to these sort of fringe players who have been in and out of the first 11 the last 12 months, the likes of your Michael Keanes, the likes of your Minas, the likes of your Holgates, the likes of your Davis. The fact of the matter is, we don't want these players. These players, ideally, are going to be out the door.
There's no future for them, is the Paul? There's no future for them at the club.
If they're not going to be going in January, they're certainly going to be going in the summer. Keane's apparently just got an Irish passport sorted out, so he goes on loan into Europe. Mina's out of contract and almost absolutely is not getting a new one. So he'll probably go in January as well, while we can get any sort of figure for him. Holgate's had his chances numerous times and not taking them. He's had good runs of form here and there, but overall it's not been enough. So I don't really think he's going to be at the club, ideally not, in a year or two's time. Davis, likewise. Other players as well who've got opportunities. Begovic. Now, I don't know whether it's a case of he's got it in his contract that he's got to play in the League Cup games. I think that's something that gets slipped in to number twos, goalies, deals when they agree to sign for you. But if he didn't have it in his contract that he had to play in this game, then I don't understand why he played either.
Yeah.
But I kind of get why he gave Vinagre a chance, the left back guy we got from Sporting Lisbon, because he's not played much, and we don't know. And maybe if we give him a chance, he could prove to be better than Michaelenko, who's, a lot of fans like him, but he's not a world beater, is he?
No.
But and Decore as well. Why was Decore getting a chance? Do you know what I mean? Unless it's just injuries and Iwobi as maybe a little bit of a niggle when they wanted to protect him. I don't understand why he came back into the team, because he stunk the gaff out in the early weeks of the season, and he should only be getting back in if there is injuries and it's needs must. But a lot of the blame goes on the players and a lot of it goes on the manager. There's certain things that the manager can't help. I know he's can't help the fact that Mason Holgate's falling over on the wet grass and letting them run through and get a third goal. He can't help the fact that Tom Davis gets, an absolute golden opportunity and puts it in the stand. But he can help the fact that certain players who don't deserve to put the shirt on, and we knew this months and months and months ago, are getting opportunities that they didn't deserve over young kids who are hungry and might have something to offer. We'll never know unless we give them a chance to see. And what better opportunity did we have last night in a League Cup game against a load of other reserve players from the other side who were no great shakes themselves? So I'm sorry, I'm very, very disappointed in Frank Lampard last night. Very disappointed. I think he got it completely wrong, and he can come out afterwards and say, I learned a lot about certain players. But mate, you should have known this about these players months and months ago when they were letting you down last season. Because Evertonians have known about them since before last season.
The other thing it does as well is that his team selection, because we know about these players, all right? So, and I treat him as someone of intelligence, so I presume he knows about them as well. So by playing them, he's tried to convey an idea that he doesn't care about this game, I mean, which is fine. It's percentages, right? But all that does is double down on Saturday. So we get beat Saturday 2-0 with our first team. You'd have doubled down on that game. And we'd have got beaten to them, and he'll look even bigger mug than he does tonight. So it makes no sense to basically look as if you're doubling down on a game like that, because it can only come back to bite you if we lose. Equally, if we win, he'll say he's vindicated, but I don't know.
So let's talk about the manager for a second then. Frank Lampard, he has his people for and against, obviously. I think last night on the back of the game, I don't know if it was just because emotions were running high as they do after the games, but I think questions were asked at the weekend because it was such a poor performance against Leicester as well. And it was, equally, if not worse, last night. Now, Frank Lampard's record doesn't make for great reading. Let's have it right. If we take the emotion out the game, Frank Lampard's record as Everton manager does not make for good reading at this moment in time. I get the whole thing about sticking with the manager and all that, and I think I'm still in that camp just at this moment. But Paul, do you think?
Me as well.
Just thinking about this game on Saturday, we'll do the opposition. We'll do the preview in a different video. But just talking about this game on Saturday on the back of last night's results, how important is this? Do you think that a lot of fans are starting to really turn on Lampard now? Where do you stand on the manager situation? Because there's been a bit of noise on the back of last night, let's say, about whether he is the man to go forward.
From what you read, people are one extreme or the other. Certain fans absolutely adore him and think that none of it's his fault, and certain fans just won't give him any credit for anything and just will tell you till the blue in the face that he's rubbish even when we win games. I do blame last night largely on him. As I touched on, it's not his fault players are doing the wrong things on the pitch, but it is his fault when he's given opportunities to players who don't deserve it, and he should be knowing by now that he can't hang his hat on them. I wouldn't say this game at the weekend when we go back to Bournemouth is a must win, but it's a game he really needs to win, because if he doesn't win it and we go into this World Cup break where we are on the point tally we've got with, what would that be, our 7th loss in 15 games this season, then it's going to be a very, very long break for Evertonians, and it's going to give food for thought, isn't it, for a lot of people. I don't think the board are close to sacking him yet. I think this break will come on at the right time, because if we just had back-to-back games, if we were in the December period, the January period, where there's a game every 3 days, then things could get very, very ugly very, very quick, can't they? When you're just losing back-to-back.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't win this game at the weekend, and God forbid if we lose badly again, then fans are going to be just fighting each other even more, and it's going to be more toxic amongst the fan base. The debates are only going to get more passionate, aren't they? With Frank, I'm with you in the sense that I still think sacking the manager now, or even if we lose on Saturday, would be the wrong decision. But with every bad result that comes, you lose more and more faith in him that he's the man to really take us anywhere and sort of set the club back on the right track. I don't think for a minute he's going to be, basically personally, I don't think he's the manager who's going to lead us to great things if great things ever come for us. I think he'll just be the person who sort of turn the ship around rather than got the ship into its hopeful destination. But when you look at his record, you said it was very, very poor, and it is. But I go back to the point of there's just been a lot of things happen at the club that he was out of his control, and I don't think there's a lot of managers who could have done any drastically better. When you take it into consideration, I'm not saying other managers wouldn't have us on more points, but there's no manager who's going to get this squad into the top 8. Do you know what I mean? I don't believe there's no manager who's even going to go to Tottenham with this squad and win, or what other bad defeat that we have is going to win that game against Chelsea on the first day when we just had no striker at all, no outlet.
Villa.
Pardon?
Villa. That was a pretty bad one.
Yeah, Villa was a bad one, but
Man United wasn't great either. We had the defeat against
true.
Tottenham and Newcastle.
There's been some, but going back to my point, I worked it out today. I saw the stat I think the Toffee Blues Twitter account put up. I think Lampard so far managed 37 Everton games overall, and he's won 12, lost 18, drew 7. Now, if you forget the cup games, because the cup should be the furthest thing from Evertonians' minds at the moment. We're not going to have any sort of cup run with this team in the next season or two. It's just not going to happen. So just focus on the league. He's had 32 league games, which he's won 9, lost, I think, 16. Sorry, he's won 9 league games. He's drawn 7. So that takes it to 60. Yeah, and he's lost 16. So out 34 points in 32 games. That's poor. That's very poor by modern Everton standards. You know, it's a Wales away from where we were under David Moyes a lot of the time, and where we were under Martinez in the first season, and even where we were under that first season under Koeman, and probably from where we were under Allardyce in the few months he was here. But it's still not relegation material for me. If 34 points in 32 games, let's say we round that out to 38, on average, you'd be looking at Frank Lampard full seasons at Everton, if you go off the stats that he's already got, of getting us maybe 40, 41 points. And 40, 41 points, I don't think will be enough to take us down. And that seems to be all his remit is, just don't take Everton down this season. And I unless we get a severe injury crisis, I don't think we will go down. It'll just be really, really miserable and really, really depressing. And I accepted that in the summer, that this was going to be a miserable, depressing season. But as long as we're not in the bottom 3 come the end of it, then it's just something we have to take. So I'm not in the Lampard out camp yet, but I'm sort of losing a lot of faith in him that he's going to be a manager who's going to, be here and achieve anything significant. I'm starting to just think he's a manager who's going to kind of just be here for 2-3 years, and we're just going to, trot along in the bottom half of the table, and then we'll get to Bramley-Moore, and then hopefully, things will pick up and we'll ditch him for someone who's better. But he doesn't help himself at times when he makes decisions, like tactical choices that he made last night. But we don't ever seem to lose games narrowly under him. We either get beat horrifically and win narrowly, or we don't even compete in games at all, and it's just a stink fest.
Would you agree with that, Owen?
I think my views on Frank Lampard are perfectly clear, but what I would say is I don't think there's any appetite from the board, I don't think, to make a change there. And I think even if we get beat 8-0 on Saturday, I think he would probably survive it. I do sense a shift in opinion, but I don't think the board would change. I think he's probably, I won't say lucky, but he'd probably be relieved to see the break come when it's going to come on Saturday, because a few more weeks it might take a different turn. But I think for now he'll probably ride it out, but who knows? But yeah, but my feelings are perfectly clear. So.
Who knows? Yeah. Well, we'll leave it there as far as the extra time's concerned. Big thanks to Paul and Owen for jumping on. Again, a really disappointing night. We're sort of used to them in the League Cup. Absolutely turned over by Bournemouth reserves, as we've already said. Some real question marks over team selections, and just absolute inept in front of goal again, which is really disappointing to see. But it's another trip to the South Coast on Saturday. We will be doing a match preview shortly, so please subscribe if you haven't done so already. And yeah, keep watching the Toffee Blues. Again, big thanks to Paul and Owen for jumping on, and we will catch you again soon. Cheers, everyone.